Hey everybody, so I just wanted to do a quick video on the registry functions that ship with LabVIEW. So if you go to connectivity and Windows Registry access, I'm going to be talking about these VIs. So we can basically open registries, we can create new keys, we can read information about those different keys, we can read and write them, we can delete them, etc. So we can do all sorts of stuff with the Windows Registry. Basically, you can do anything with the Windows Registry with these functions. Now, as a word of caution, you do need to be careful when you're messing with the Windows Registry. If you mess things up, you can totally tank your entire computer. So you do need to be careful with what you're doing. Be safe, be smart. You can use this effectively and not really risk things, but you can't just go haphazardly reading and writing keys all over the place, or you can seriously mess stuff up. I have just a simple example here kind of showing how we can use these functions. So this very first function is called Open Registry Key. So this is what we're going to use to basically start a connection to the registry. Now we can specify our root key. So, depending on what we're looking for, there's current user, local machine, users, etc. So, and if we're not sure necessarily what you want to read, you can open the registry editor. So if you notice, these look familiar, right? Like current user, and I can see basically what's in there. I can open software and I can see further what's in there. I can open National Instruments. I can open, DACMX. I can open, Common, etc. So I can go explore kind of all of these things already just using the registry editor. So if you're, trying to figure out where something is, you can just go open the registry editor and find it first. And it gives you the full path and everything up there. So I've opened the current user. From there, I can also specify a subkey if I want to. It's optional. But this basically allows me to dig down deeper than just the H key current user. So like I opened up and you saw, I opened up software, I opened up National Instruments, and now I'm opening up Measurement and Automation Explorer. I also can specify permissions for my key if I want. By default, it's going to be this key read, key write. If I want to read only or all access, etc., or just allow certain permissions, right? Like only the ability to query, only the ability to set values, I can. By default, it's going to be read and write. And some things, right, might be protected. If I try to read local machine and set it to read write, and I don't run this as an administrator, I'm likely going to get an error that I don't have permission to do that because it's usually protected to administrators. So and then I can also specify the machine I want to connect to. Default is local, but if I wanted to connect to a remote machine, I can also do that. And then there's this registry view. So I can connect. Default is just going to be basically based off of the bitness of LabVIEW. But if I want to connect to 64 or 32, I can. That would be the open function. Next, we're going to use this query registry key info. So this is just going to return some details about the keys that we've opened up. So we basically get this subkey info and value info. Now the subkey info is basically just the number of subkeys, the max subkey length, and the max subkey class length. We're passing all of that info into this enum registry keys, which is basically going to return an array of all of the subkeys. And that's pretty much all there is to that enum registry keys function. So we pass in the subkey info, and it outputs all of the subkeys. We also have this enum registry values simple. So we're going to pass in this value info here, and it's going to output a couple things. So we get dword data. So if we're working with integers, that's where we're going to get that data. It also is going to output string and binary data. So anything that's a string or binary will get output there. And we get also the values, and we get basically an enum that defines the data type. So in this example, I'm just showing the values in string binary data, but depending on the data you're trying to read, you might want to select dword. Next, we are going to use this read registry value simple. So we can specify a value, which in my case, I just want to read the default web server port under Measurement and Automation Explorer. And I also need to find the default data. So I'm just passing in 0. And it's going to output the default port. Pretty simple. We can read and write basically whatever values we want using this, and it's pretty straightforward. And then we're just going to use this close registry key function when we're done to close all of that out. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's go run this example. So we get a few details. We get our subkeys. We have one subkey, which is user interface. Our values, the only value here is default web server port. And if you notice, the string binary data is actually empty. That's because, if you remember, this isn't string or binary. It is an integer, which means it's actually going to be dword data. But that's why that string is empty. And then our default port we get is 9100. So we're able to read that right off of the registry. And yeah, pretty much using the same method, we can read anything from the Windows Registry. So we can read information about software that's installed. I can read information about hardware devices that are connected, serial devices and COM ports. I can read ODBC information. I can store application information in the Windows Registry as well. So, if I wanted to store, COM ports or something in the registry, I can retrieve that from there as well. So you can kind of do all sorts of stuff. But like I said, you do need to be careful with the registry, that you're being cautious and, being careful with what you actually interact with, such that you don't wipe out important keys in the Windows Registry. But yeah, that would basically be a kind of quick crash course on how to use the Registry API in LabVIEW for interacting with the Windows Registry. Thanks for watching.
Canon Controls is your gateway to mastering LabVIEW. Dive into programming for data acquisition, industrial communications, and manufacturing automation. Explore how to enhance your projects with cybersecurity best practices. Join the journey to elevate your skills and secure your systems with every episode.